Now, I have fun with the idea of who would win the Stanley Cup right now. And I was sitting with all of my many logo decals and saying, well, what if I try to handicap if every team in the league had to play a 7-game series against each other, who'd come out on top? Doesn't necessarily mean the team that's ahead of them in the standings either. So I'm going to do my best now. I have no idea how long this will take. I know I have these organized as best as I can. And if I come up with a team that I say, you know what, no, I'll admit it. Because I went through all 31, and it's almost as bad as the power rankings in terms of, well, it's actually kind of worse, in terms of who's going to win a 7-game series. So let's take a look at 31. 31 is Arizona. I can't see Arizona winning a round of playoffs against anybody right now. It's Tuukka's hurt, and there's Tuukka. Ronta's hurt. Got Tuukka on the brain from the shutout today. Woohoo! No. Ronta's hurt, and there's just too many things holding Arizona back. Number 30, yeah, Buffalo. So Buffalo as well. Could I see Buffalo winning a 7-game series against Arizona? Probably. I think it would be error-filled. But I think there's more veteran presence in Buffalo. I think goaltending, well, with Leonard, I'd give them an edge over Wellwood right now. Remember, this is right now. This is not at the end of the year. This is right now. And to me, this is something that I think power rankings are. People think this is what the power rankings are. It's, well, you think this team's going to win the cup right now. Playing the best hockey doesn't necessarily mean you'd win a best-of-7 series. It's completely different. That's why the team that wins the President's Trophy often doesn't do particularly well in the playoffs. Just means you've got a good team for the regular season, but when it comes to a best-of-7, that's a completely different animal. 29th, I had to drop these guys down after today. Philly. And I could see Philly beating Buffalo and Arizona. I honestly, yeah, it's it's really hard to come up with words to describe how I think this would work. I think with the right approach, Philly could sweep either of these teams. But with the right approach, they should be in the running for a playoff spot right now, and they're not. And it's getting worse. So while they're 29th right now, and on the power rankings tonight, you'll see they've really taken a nosedive. They should be better than this. They really should. 28th is Florida. So with Luongo, I would take him over the goalies on the other teams down here. I would also take their young forwards, the scoring. Blue line, it's probably a soft with where Philly is right now. Philly's potential down the road is good. Florida's is okay. Yeah, that's a tough one too. 27th is Vancouver. I think not having a bona fide starting goaltender right now would be an issue in a 7-game series. I don't like the odds of Nilsson or Markstrom winning a series. I think that would probably go against them. 26th is Colorado. And Colorado, I think Varlamov's capable of winning a round over these teams. And I do like some of what Colorado's got going on, but in terms of as a team, I still see Colorado as not being a team that would run through four rounds. So that's up to number 26. So Colorado, Vancouver, Florida, Philly, Buffalo, Arizona. 25 is Carolina. The Hurricanes are... It's in here, isn't it? Anyways, the Hurricanes are in here. I'm trying to remember if I have Vegas in here, and if I know where Vegas should be. So it's not going to be a problem. 25 is Carolina. Scott Darling has not been what I thought he would be as their starter. I don't know what Carolina can do to fix this, but for right now, they would be my 25th favorite in terms of a Stanley Cup win. 24 is Detroit. Detroit has some of the pieces they need. They don't have everything they need. I like what Green's done offensively. I don't know that I like him in a 7-game series as your number 1 defenseman. And I don't know that they have the weapons necessary to win a 7-game series. 23, Ottawa. The Senators are higher than people are going to expect only because you have Carlson. Anderson's capable of getting hot. And if this team somehow gets some kind of a run going and makes the playoffs, I would expect Matt Duchene to do something to show his team that he's worthy. But remember, this is still 2023. So I'm ranking them ahead of a bunch of teams, and yet I'm still not saying they're going to make the playoffs. 22 is Montreal, because they need Carey Price. And if Carey Price falters, they're done. And it's the same story that it's been almost the whole time Carey Price has been there. It's been an interesting show recently. Some guys have started to show that offensive side. Gallagher's been putting up points. Galchenyuk, Drouin's starting to show something. But in terms of what Montreal's actually able to do in a playoff series, I reserve judgment. Other than to say they need Price way too much. 21 is Boston. Now, these guys could have moved up today, but I still, over a 7-game series, there's so much youth. I'm not convinced that they have a goaltender that would win a 7-round series, or a 7-game series in the first round. And for me, they're still 21st. So, there you go. I like what Boston's doing. I do think they're building back to being a championship team, but they're not there now. 20's Dallas. So there you go. All of my teams are off the board at 20. My 4 favorite teams are all 20 or lower. Bishop's been a bit of a misadventure. Their defense has been a misadventure, and defense wins in the playoffs. So based on their offense, I'd say, sure, they have a good shot of winning in the playoffs. But right now, I can't say that they would be a Cup championship level team. 19 is Minnesota. I put Minnesota ahead of Dallas only because I think Minnesota has the blue line. Dubnyk can get hot and can play really well for at least for over a 7-game series and steal a series. I'm waiting for him to do it, but he can do it. And I would put that ahead of Bishop right now. This is close. This is really close. This is the former Minnesota and the current Minnesota. So it's close. Number 18 is Edmonton. Why is Edmonton so high? Because if these guys make the playoffs, you've got Connor McDavid, you've got a decent supporting cast led by guys like Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins. And I'm just saying, in a 7-game series, these guys are capable of going on a run. It's funny because going into last season, everybody said, well, they're going to get better, not that much better. They won't make the playoffs. Then they win a bunch of games. They get into the playoffs. They win a round. And everybody's like, they're going to be Stanley Cup champions. And all season, or all off season, we hear about that. Now they're in the tank, and everybody's, oh, well, we knew they weren't going to be any good. Their blue line needs help, and you know, this guy's hurt, and whatever. It's so weird how from month to month things change completely. To me, in a 7-game series, they would still be the teams that are below them. Again, this is 18th overall, though. So I still see 17 teams beating them in a 7-game series, including New Jersey. Why is New Jersey so low? Again, youth. A lot of young players. A lot of guys, and it is common for a team with a lot of young, talented players to lose that first time out and learn from that experience before they can move forward and become a championship contending team. So while I still see New Jersey as being in the mix and potentially having home ice in that first round, I still don't see them as a team that would go very far in the playoffs. And maybe the fact that they're in the Metro hurts them too. Number 16 is right where I would put Vegas right now. Vegas right now would be number 16. They have proven me wrong too many times for me to say no. And if Marc-Andre Fleury's their goaltender, he's got Stanley Cup rings. James Neal can play in the playoffs. They've got a lot of good pieces. Good enough that I'll say, yeah, I would make them 16th. But I wouldn't rate them higher than that. So that means that there's a team that's currently out of the playoffs that's going to be in the top 15. And this is them. The Anaheim Ducks, I know. Everybody's injured. It looks like a disaster. Everything looks like it's a mess for them. And it is, kind of, sort of. Their defense is allowing way too many shots. Their offense is almost non-existent. A lot of their top forwards are hurt. And their goaltending has been under siege most of the season. So we can't look at their goaltending and say, oh, well, it's no good. It's just under siege right now. So I would rank them 15th. 14th is the Rangers. Henrik Lundqvist is capable. And I know there's Rangers fans that are thinking, well, we can do this. This will be the year. And it would be nice to see King Henrik get one, but I have my doubts. So I have them at 14th. 13th is San Jose. And I have San Jose higher than other teams because San Jose went to the final only a couple years ago. They were in the Stanley Cup final. They do know what it takes to win in the postseason. Joe Thornton is capable of leading a team. Brent Burns has underachieved so far this year. And Jones is good enough to win in the playoffs. So, for me, they're 13th. Number 12 is the Capitals. Oh, the poor Capitals. There are some who would state that I should have them 31st. Based on their history, based on how things have gone for them over the years, that the Capitals shouldn't even be in the conversation. And to me, they're kind of not. Being 12th means that I think 11 teams beat them in a best-of-7 series. But they are still putting up decent numbers. Ovechkin's still Ovechkin. Holtby's still a good goaltender, even though last year's postseason left a lot of people wondering and doubting him. I still think he's capable of winning a series. We'll see, right? And up to number 11, the Islanders. Yeah, I have the Islanders at 11 because, again, they don't have that playoff pedigree for a long time now. Basically, since the late 80s, it has been a lot of stops and starts for the Islanders. I do like what they have going on. I do think that John Tavares is having a career year, and I think he's going to stay there. I think John Tavares will stay with the Islanders. But I still don't see them right now as a team that would win very many rounds. Again, being in that Metro makes it a lot harder. Absolutely makes it a lot harder. Their first round opponent right now would be the Devils. And the other options would be Pittsburgh or Columbus. That division, somebody's coming out black and blue. Number 10, Winnipeg. I know they're tied for first overall. I know Jets fans are very excited, and I don't blame them. It's early December, they're first overall. Odds are they make the playoffs. They can do something dangerous. I absolutely believe they can win a round. I don't know that I trust Hellebuck for 4. I really don't know. And for that reason, I have to have them at 10th. I have to look and say, you know what? I can put them this high. I can't put them any higher. Because I haven't seen them win a game in the playoffs yet. This franchise is 0-8 in the playoffs. And it does make you sometimes wonder. Number 9 is the Flames. So why would the Flames be ahead of these guys? The Flames are ahead of the Jets because they are in a bit of an easier division in the Pacific. So their road to get out of their division is a little easier than Winnipeg's would be coming out of the Central. They also have a goaltender in Mike Smith who has won in the playoffs before. You know, when Arizona went on that nice little run, Mike Smith had a little bit of something to do with it. They do have a more experienced team. I think their blue line's a little more capable of going on a longer run. So for that reason, I have Calgary at number 9. Number 8, Kings. It was hard for me to justify putting the Kings this low. They've won twice. Kopitar is having the kind of season he did the last time he won the Selke Trophy. Jonathan Quick, who's been a little bit off and on this year, when he's on, he's still the best. When Jonathan Quick is on, he's the best. And I don't bet against him in a 7-game series because he is capable of turning it on. Remember, St. Louis had them down 3-0, and Quick had that gaff behind his own net, and everybody was like, oh, look, Kings are done. And then Quick just turned it around. They won 4 in a row. Quick is the guy that can do that. So for that reason, I have them at 8th. Number 7 is Toronto. The Leafs have one of the best young cores in the league. The good news for the Leafs is because Nylander and Marner have had off seasons in terms of their offensive potential, their numbers aren't very high. The fear of what's going to happen when Matthews, Marner, and Nylander's contracts are up is somewhat muted now. This is Matthews' team. To a lesser extent, it's Kadri's. Kadri doesn't get the full credit that he deserves. And I said going into this season, I didn't see an offensive fallback for him. I didn't see him dropping off offensively. And there were a lot of publications said he overachieved. He was going to drop to like a 20-goal forward. I think Kadri plays a more important role than he gets credit for. Do I think he gets Selke nomination? No. Because for much the same reason that Marchand would never get it, when you have that reputation, and Matt Tkachuk's getting that reputation in Calgary, people don't vote for you as the best defensive forward in the league. There's a certain amount of a perception of class that goes with that Selke trophy. I know Kessler, people are going to be like, wait, what? Kessler? No. But at the same time, Kessler's so good defensively, or has been over his career, that it overwhelms his reputation. I don't know that Kadri's in that position right now. But for people who say, well, Matthews is better defensively than Kadri, Mike Babcock trusts Kadri in positions where the team's up by a goal with a couple minutes left. I've noticed that he seems to favor him on some of those defensive zone faceoffs late when they're leading over Matthews. So for me, that tells me that the coach has a little more faith in Kadri defensively, which is not an insult at all. It is a statement of the fact that Kadri is just very good defensively. Number 6 is Chicago. When you've won 3 Stanley Cups, why not 4? Why not? So I can't bet against them in a series unless it's against one of these 5 teams ahead of them. People say I don't talk a lot about Chicago. There's not a lot to talk about with Chicago right now. They're outside of the Crawford injury. The Crawford injury does change that the whole face of everything for Chicago. If it's a long-term injury for Crawford, that does hurt them. That absolutely does hurt them. But I would still take them in a 7-game series over virtually everybody beneath them right now. They proved with Darling they can win with another goalie in the playoffs. And they just have so many holdovers from those Stanley Cups. I can't rule them out. So, number 5 is St. Louis. I do put St. Louis ahead of Chicago because St. Louis has been so deadly this year. And while it's been 50 years, this year's 51, and they've never won anything, this could be the year. I mean, the Chicago Cubs won a World Series. Anything is possible. So the St. Louis Blues absolutely can win. The only thing that makes me doubt this right now, and it's probably the reason why they're not higher than 5, I know Jake Allen did it last year in the postseason. His numbers right now are kind of a little low. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see what St. Louis does. We'll see if they peak too early. Hopefully not for their fans' sake. Number 4, Columbus. You want to bet on a team that's never won a Stanley Cup before winning one this year? Maybe it's Columbus. They got manhandled by Pittsburgh last year in the first round. That seems to have sparked them this year. They're playing really solid hockey. There's not much to complain about with them at all. It also doesn't seem to matter right now if it's Bobrovsky or Korpisalo. That doesn't seem to be a problem. And coming into this year, that was a concern. So if they can play just as well in front of Korpisalo as they do in front of Bobrovsky, and if Bobrovsky doesn't get overworked this year, so you don't want to see your goalie playing 65 to 70 games and then being gassed in the first round of the playoffs. If Columbus can keep this up, if Panarin can up his offensive game a bit, and if guys like Atkinson and Foligno can chip in at a record, or I won't say at a record pace for them, I'll say at the pace they were at last season, there's no reason Columbus can't win a Stanley Cup. None. Number 3, Pittsburgh. I know. Yeah, I know. I hear everybody. They've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. And until they're eliminated from the playoffs, yeah, I just can't see it. I am blinded to the fact that they have won 2 straight Stanley Cups. Their goaltending has been kind of a misadventure. They miss Marc-Andre Fleury. I think they miss Nick Bonino. I think they miss a couple of guys that they lost in the offseason on top of that. But come playoff time, in a best-of-7 series, if the playoffs started tomorrow and they're in it, I can't bet against them. I can't bet against a team led by Sidney Crosby. Healthy Chris Letang, I can't bet against the Penguins. As much as I'd like to. This is not a, oh, you cheer for that team. No, that's not what this is at all. Number 2 is Nashville. Which means number 1's Tampa. This, to me, would be a fantastic finals. You have a team that can score with anybody. You have a team with the best defense in the league in Nashville. You have two goaltenders who came into this season. Rinne, the question was, can he follow up on a great playoff with a great season this year? Yep. Now, he wasn't on the board I did with the top 5 goaltenders the other day because he's not a top 5 goaltender, and his save percentage isn't below .920. So for anybody who wasn't on the board, that means they're having a good year. They're not top 5, they're having a good year. It's so weird. I thought I said that too during that video. Anyways, Tampa with Vasilevsky, Nashville with Rinne. It would be an amazing matchup. This is the Stanley Cup final, I believe, if the playoffs started right now. And Tampa would be knocking out Pittsburgh in the semis. And Nashville would be knocking out, ironically. So it would be, let's just figure out the final 4 based on my current projections. So the final 4 for me would be Nashville playing LA, because again, LA's division is the Pacific. So LA would win that division. They're in the Pacific. And then the other semifinal / conference final, however you want to look at it, would be Pittsburgh and Tampa, with Tampa winning it. These would be amazing conference finals. I'd be very happy to see the hockey that way. Notice, though, that they're not really my favorite teams. I'd be very sad to once again see all my favorite teams on the sideline come round 2. But that's kind of what happens. So, again, that's just a fun way of looking at it. It's not scientific. It's just me going through and, all right, I'd put this one ahead of this one. But I really can't argue too much with how I put them. I had expected to find one and go, oh, no, this is too high. Personally, that's how I see it. It does not mean that's the power rankings, though. That's the funny thing. Power rankings is just who's playing best right now, not who would win a Stanley Cup. So for me, that's who I think would win a Stanley Cup if the playoffs started tomorrow. Tell me your pick in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you very much for watching. You guys are awesome. You guys being out there makes it worth being in here. And I'll talk to you again soon.